Hello guys, welcome to Talking News. Chasing a Murderer. Please like and subscribe. Right now guys, that helps this channel out and I work hard. And don't forget to hit that notification bell if you want notifications. Also, if you like what this channel is putting out and you would like to help us move forward, go to Patreon right now. So Chad Daybell was taken into custody yesterday after investigators had a warrant for his property. It was a sealed warrant and they arrived around 7 a.m. in the morning. They stayed there for a few hours and you started seeing some action coming out of there. Later, he was arrested on a few charges until the autopsy pending comes back. According to authorities, they found a couple sets of remains on that property. And here we go. We have his mugshot right here. You can tell he's lost a lot of weight. He's probably been stressing quite a bit. And everyone's been waiting for this moment. They know that Lori Vallow is behind jail bars, but not charged with any type of murder or anything like that right now. And, well, neither is Chad Daybell at the moment. So the property that they searched was 1900 East in Fremont County. And that was on Tuesday morning, June 9th of 2020. So they had the FBI out there, the Rexburg Police Chief Shane Terman, I hope I said that right, as well as Chief Gary Hagan. Later on that day, you can see Nate Eaton. He's in a helicopter hovering over the property. And let's see, Sheriff Lynn Humphreys held a brief news conference that afternoon. It was just really short and sweet. It really didn't give you much detail. He explained at that conference that Chad Daybell was he was taken in for questioning and charges are pending against him. So with the kids missing and no signs of whether they're alive or not, the two remains that they find on that property kind of insinuates they might have found pieces to the missing puzzle, but you have to wait for, confirmation on that one. Meanwhile, I'm guessing that Lori Vallow's family, who insisted that she wouldn't do anything to her children, might be in a bit of shock today. Lori's mother, Janice Cox, said on one of the news interviews that she felt that her daughter just wouldn't do something like that to her children. So did Lori's sister, Summer. So I remember when I seen this happening, I referred back to the faces that Lori Vallow made in court. Her smirks, her just, thinking she's better than everyone else and that she was above everyone, facial expressions. And I just thought about how in the world could she sit there in that courtroom knowing what she knew. Now, we kind of believe that, they did find the kids, and this is because there's a few leaks. There's a few people saying that family have identified that one of them was J.J. Vallow. Then you have an interview with a mayor. I'm not going to say who it is. And the mayor seems to understand that it is the children that they found, because the reporter asked him, are you confirming that it is the children? And the mayor kind of has this surprised look on his face, like, I think I did, and I probably shouldn't have. Meanwhile, I can't imagine what the family's going through, especially Colby. But I feel like he's going to be okay since he has Kay Woodcock and Brandon Boudreaux by his side. Because at first, we really wasn't certain about the entire family because we didn't know any of the people involved. But definitely, I think I feel most sorry for Colby. Hopefully, the family is going to be able to handle whatever news they get in the next few hours and days coming up. And I'm really hoping that they actually get the justice that everyone deserves, especially there's 3 individuals I feel are in need of major justice, and that's Tammy Daybell, Chad Daybell's wife, who is now deceased, and the 2 missing children. And I know I've read you guys' comments, which if you give me permission, I will use some of those comments in a later video. I know that this case has touched so many hearts, and so many of you are feeling the grief along with the family and the disappointment. But there is an excitement involved with this mess, and that excitement is seeing Chad Daybell finally behind bars. I don't know what it was. I felt that this case was going to break at any moment. Anyways, I felt like the investigators were determined to solve this case. And they did. They're working very hard, and we're making steps forward. And so I'm very proud of the investigators and the media who followed this case and kept it out in the light so that people didn't forget about the kids. So what's interesting, if it were to be the children that they found on that piece of property, what made him think he'd get away with this? And what in the world is his kids going through? So I feel like there was a tip that come in. It's familiar to the Savannah Spurlock case. Savannah Spurlock case is kind of like this. She's a Kentucky young mom, just had twins. She goes missing. And I went over her timeline over and over and over again. There was no way that them guys had time to do anything with that girl when she went missing. And it was many months later before finally you seen them on the piece of property where Savannah Spurlock went missing, and they found her on that property. Of course, she was found because of a tip that come in, and the tip come in from the guy's dad. So I was thinking perhaps most likely they got a tip. Of course, there's rumors going around that we were able to use satellites to find them. And we also hear that there's rumors going around that they used dogs, cadaver dogs, to go out there and search the property once the property got to a certain temperature and there was a certain moisture. But I don't know what the truth is, so we can only wait and see. I'm pretty betting on the tip. So Chad's kids are there. How did they not see this? And knowing that this just happened, this couple goes to Hawaii and celebrating a marriage. So some people believe that the two were so distorted mentally that they thought they were gods, and they were preparing and thought they were the chosen ones to help for Jesus Christ coming this summer. But the truth of the matter is I don't think they truly realized that they had fell off the deep end. There is no action that they have taken that suggests that they are good people and that they are supportive of a good energy. They actually mimic the energy of, if you want to compare it to what they understand, dark energy. Okay, so let's talk about June 9th. So could you imagine the look on his face when they showed up at his door? I just couldn't. So what I hear is he was wearing blue jeans, a button-up shirt, and we've seen in a few pictures he was wearing a baseball cap. So what we hear is Chad Daybell actually left the piece of property while they were there, and once they found whatever they found, they actually pulled Chad over in his silver SUV and placed handcuffs on him and led him away. They also towed his vehicle. Anyways, you always heard the term, I'd like to be a fly on the wall when certain things happen. I would have loved to have been a neuron in his head when he was driving in that car. Was he thinking about running? Was he thinking, oh crap, it's over? Anyways, while helicopters were flying over his property, they spotted, these blue tarps that were back there, tents, canine dogs, as well as digging tools. So according to a few articles online, The FBI spokeswoman Sandra Barker confirms that the agency's evidence response team is assisting Madison County with the execution of the search warrant. When they arrived in the area, numerous roads around the home were closed and drivers were being rerouted. They asked media to remain in the staging area, and police say that they or tell media that they may be on the scene for multiple days, where it's a little bit different from what we heard at the start. We heard it would be a few hours. Again, I just can't imagine what Chad Daybell's family's going through. I mean, they're going through a lot too. Them kids are innocent as far as we know. And, you know, they lost their mother, which we're still waiting to hear on that. I think we suspect that, you know, there's foul play with that. That's what I'm going to cover on it. I'm going to go ahead and finish the second part of connecting the dots because there's so much interesting information, and so we can compare what we knew to what we'll learn later. But I just can't imagine what his kids are going through. They lost their mother, and now they're seeing their father in the news being, you know, he's being dragged through the mud. And, you know, they're probably not even allowed to stay at their house. I'm waiting to hear on that one as we speak. Now, Chad Daybell does have a court appearance today. He will be seeing a judge today. And I'm certain that we will see one charge after another within the next few weeks or a little bit longer, depending on you know, the remains they found on the property, how long it takes to identify them. At this point, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, whether he's going to start talking, which would be the smart thing to do, or Lori is going to say, well, you know, if he's talking, then I'm going to talk. So are they going to be very supportive of each other, even behind bars, can talk? Anyways, I'm referring back to Melanie Gibbs' interview that Nate Eaton did. And I refer back to Melanie Pawlowski's interview, and it was very evident that she was lying. And what was even more scary is the fact that Ian might have known all along some of the things happened, and he was supporting her anyway. What's also sad is a lot of people believe that Ian is more blind than anyone else in this entire story, and it's going to be interesting to see if he continues to stay that way. So a lot of us out here are wondering if Melanie's going to be behind bars too. And you know, I feel there's a big chance that they might come up with a charge, whether it be, you know, somebody that was an accessory or maybe even conspiracy. A lot of that will determine on what the investigators get out of Chad Daybell now that he's behind bars. So what's interesting is whether or not a lot of people, this is scary for me, because did she do this out of malice? And this means a lot, guys. And does she have a chance to get off on, you know, having mental illness? I hate to say it, but if any case could get off with something like that, most likely this is that case. Now, there's something I wanted to mention to you guys, and, you know, was she ever a great mother? And when I look, I see that she was, you ever heard of a functioning alcoholic? I call her a functioning mother, because all the evidence that I've seen with her, she's not real close with her family like they claim. Lori doesn't bond well. That's what I notice. You know, I don't think she ever looked at her kids and thought, oh, I just love them so much. I don't think she had that. This is my opinion. I think the kids were always leveraged to get what she wanted. And then, you know, there come a point to where the kids were kind of stopping her from getting what she wanted. And then this happened. So I really feel like the kids were always just something. It was leverage to help her get to where she was trying to get. Some people will disagree with that, and that's okay. That's how I feel. That's the energy or the reading I get from her. She always had problems and nobody ever noticed it. And when they did notice it, she was able to manipulate and play people around her to make it seem like everyone was crazy except her. Now, don't forget that the Attorney General's office is still investigating both Lori and Chad for conspiracy, attempted murder, and murder in the connection to the death of Chad's former wife, Tammy Daybell. I just want to mention this because I haven't in a while. Lori is in the Madison County Jail on 2 counts of desertion and non-support of a dependent child. I think we will see those charges be upgraded and added to. According to a few news articles, late Tuesday night, authorities in Idaho released a scant new information about Daybell's apparently alleged crimes. They did not say officially what charges Daybell faces. They only announced that he was booked into Fremont County Jail on a felony. But East Idaho News reports that Daybell was booked on a charge of destruction or concealment of evidence, citing online court records. You can bet that prosecutors will have their hands full, and they have a lot of decisions, a lot of things that they're having to scramble and get together. According to jail records, he was booked at 5:21 yesterday, June 9th, 2020. That's Mountain Daylight Time. So right now, our hands are tied. There's not much we can do to help in this case, but be supportive and keep watching the videos and the articles and all these things to do with this case. We have to depend on the prosecutors to do their job, and all the attorneys, the law enforcement, the investigators, and we can only hope that all the witnesses that know something will come forward and be completely honest. Now, as you know, Melanie Gibb was one of the witnesses, and she come forward. She was one of the first ones to talk. She said she was talking before people even knew she was talking, but we knew she had talked. We just didn't know what she said. So it's always the first one to talk usually gets the lighter or nothing at all for consequences. So hopefully with Chad being behind bars, they might have some leverage to find out, exactly what happened with the children. I think we're going to find out that Melanie Boudreaux and Zuluma, who married Lori Cox's brother, them two have a huge part to play in this. That's my opinion. I feel that there's just several more people that are part of this that happened, whether it be, interactive physically, but definitely mentally. So definitely, we do have the rights to free religion in this country, but when that religion crosses a line and turns into something that is this devastating, well, it's time to start taking steps to break that down. Now, this morning, they did have Chad Daybell in court this morning around 11 Mountain Central Time. I have that video, and we're going to play some of it because there's better versions of the entire video out there. I wasn't able to record such a good version. And to be honest, I wasn't certain if we could share it, so.
Only going to be about a minute and a half, and then I'll start. This matter is being held at the Fremont County courtroom via Zoom remotely. Mr. Daybell, the defendant, appears with his counsel, Mr. Pryor, at the jail here in Fremont County. Mr. Wood appears remotely from his office. There is the clerk here, there's a court reporter, and there is some IT support that is also on the line. This is the date and time set for an initial appearance. Mr. Daybell, it appears that you have hired private counsel, Mr. John Pryor, is that correct?
Yes.
And you'd like to retain him. Mr. Pryor, has there been a formal notice of appearance that has been entered?
Judge, I will get that filed within a short period of time.
All right, but Mr. Daybell, Mr. Pryor is your attorney for this hearing, is that correct?
Yes.
Mr. Daybell, have you seen a notification of rights form that was provided to your counsel prior to the hearing here today?
Yes.
Do you understand all of your legal rights?
Yes.
Mr. Daybell, in addition to the rights that were contained in that notification of rights form that was given to you, I'm going to advise you of additional rights under Idaho Criminal Rule 5. Number one, you have the right to be at the initial appearance or appear via Zoom remotely like you are today. You don't need to make any.
He does not, Your Honor. Thank you.
You understand your legal rights, is that correct?
I do.
All right. Mr. Daybell, did you receive a copy of the warrant of arrest as well as the criminal complaint that has been filed here in Fremont County in this case?
Yes.
Let me get one more thing out of the way, Mr. Pryor. Ultimately, the Supreme Court order has ordered these hearings be held remotely, but it's my understanding your client is willing to waive his right to be here in court in person. Is that correct?
It is, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay. Mr.
Remember that part where they said he has a right to waive appearing.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Daybell, is that also correct?
Yes.
With regards to the criminal complaint, it was filed dated June 10th, 2020. There are 2 counts in the criminal complaint. The first count is destruction, alteration, or concealment of evidence, a felony, a violation of Idaho Code 182603. The maximum punishment for that charge is up to 5 years in the state penitentiary and or up to a $10,000 fine. The allegation is that the defendant, Chad Daybell, on or between the 22nd day of September 2019 and the 9th day of June 2020 in the county of Fremont, state of Idaho, did willfully conceal and or aid and abet another to willfully conceal human remains, knowing that said human remains were about to be produced, used and or discovered as evidence in a felony proceeding, inquiry and or investigation authorized by law with the intent to prevent it from being so produced, used and or discovered. Count 2 is also the same charge, destruction, alteration, or concealment of evidence, a felony. It's punishable by up to 5 years in the state penitentiary and or up to a $10,000 fine. It alleges that the defendant, Chad Daybell, on or between the 8th day of September 2019 and the 9th day of June 2020 in the county of Fremont, state of Idaho, did willfully destroy, alter, and or conceal human remains and or did aid and abet another to willfully destroy, alter, and or conceal human remains, knowing that said human remains were about to be produced, used, and or discovered as evidence in a felony proceeding, inquiry and or investigation authorized by law with the intent to prevent it from being so produced, used, and or discovered. Mr. Daybell, do you understand the allegations on both counts that have been brought against you?
I do.
Mr. Daybell, do you also understand the maximum penalties on each of those counts?
Yes.
Mr. Daybell, do you understand that those maximum penalties could run consecutively, one after the other, or they could run concurrently? Do you understand that?
Yes.
All right. We've gone through the criminal complaint. We've gone through each count. I've advised the defendant of his right. We've gone through that form. Let's discuss the next hearing that's going to be set. Mr. Pryor and Mr. Wood, that next hearing would be a preliminary hearing or a probable cause hearing. The defendant has a right to have that within 14 days if he's incarcerated. It's my understanding that based upon previous conversations that there'll be a waiver of that speedy preliminary hearing. Is that correct, Mr. Pryor?
It is, Your Honor. I've had that discussion with Mr. Daybell. In addition, I've had that discussion with Fremont County prosecuting attorney, and at this point, we'll waive the time.
Mr. Wood, is that correct as far as the stipulation?
Yes, the state's fine with that, Your Honor.
Mr. Pryor, the court's going to grant that waiver and acknowledge that it's knowingly and voluntarily made. but I will need a written waiver of speedy preliminary hearing so that can be in the file for the record. Do you understand?
Yes, Your Honor, I'll do that. Thank you.
All right. With regards to a preliminary hearing, let's first talk about the logistics of that. Mr. Wood, how long do you foresee it taking to accomplish a preliminary hearing in the future?
No longer than a day.
Okay. 1 day, Mr. Pryor, do you concur with that?
Judge, I'm at a little bit of a disadvantage, but for practical purposes, I think a day would be appropriate.
All right, we'll set this for 1 day. Mr. Wood and Mr. Pryor, do you have a timeline that you'd like to look at as far as scheduling that today?
Judge, my preference would be within 4 to 6 weeks.
Mr. Wood?
That's fine. We do have a preliminary hearing on July 9th and 10th in the Lori Vallow case. And so if we are going to push it out that far, I'd ask that this prelim be at least the week of the July 16th.
Unfortunately, I'm going to be out of town the week of July 16th, and I won't be back for some time. So if we need to have it in July, it probably needs to be towards the beginning of July or into June. Otherwise, it's going to have to be the last week of July. Mr. Pryor, does that work with your schedule?
Judge, the latter part of June and the first week of July, the 1st and the 2nd of July would be ideal for me if that's available to the court and to Mr. Wood.
We can make that work.
All right, let's look at dates then. I'm looking at the calendar. The end of June, it looks like those Monday is the 29th, and then Tuesday is the 30th, and then Wednesday is July 1st, Thursday, July 2nd. Which of those days do both of you prefer?
I think the 2nd would be best for the state.
Mr. Pryor, does that work for you?
Judge, I believe the 2nd falls on a Friday, if I'm not mistaken. So I would like to see if we could do the 1st, and if necessary, we can have the 2nd available in the event this thing runs a little longer, Your Honor.
Okay, so the 2nd is a Thursday, Mr. Pryor, but I appreciate that you would like to have extra time if it does go over. So if we set it for the 1st, Mr. Wood, can we do that? And then if it spills over into the 2nd, we'll make sure that date's available.
That'd be fine.
Okay. We'll set that then July 1st and July 2nd for the preliminary hearing or the probable cause hearing. Lastly, the court has issued the arrest warrant. The court designated that it would address bond and or bail at the hearing set today. And so I'd like to hear argument from both parties regarding bail. So why don't I hear from the state first, and then I'll hear from the defense.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state is requesting the bail be set at $1 million. While we recognize that felony concealing of evidence only has a maximum sentence of 5 years per charge, I think the background and context of this case necessitates a higher bail. One of the primary reasons we are asking that bail be set in that amount is that the evidence that has been concealed in this case, it's not simply a document, drugs, a gun. These are human remains. And we can, although those remains have not yet been positively identified, we are aware that those remains are the remains of children, which we believe is an aggravating factor. We have asked that the probable cause affidavit be sealed, but I would ask the court to take note of paragraphs 39 and 40 and the manner of the concealment of one of those bodies, which the state finds to be particularly egregious, both an aggravating factor and bears on character as Rule 40 as Rule 46 allows us to look at. Your Honor, we understand that the possible sentence on this case is not that long, but knowing what the subject matter is, we find it extremely serious. And we would also note that because of what has been found on Mr. Daybell's property, Should he bail out, he has strong incentive to flee. Clearly, this is the beginning now of an investigation into the deaths of children who are found on his property, and so that provides a strong incentive to flee, and we would ask that the bail reflect that. Whatever the court sets as bail, we would ask that the conditions be set that should he bond out, that he be required to wear an ankle monitor, and that his movement be restricted to Madison and Fremont counties.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Mr. Pryor, I'll hear from you next.
And Judge, just for purposes of the record, my understanding is the court's allowing us to address this issue of bond, but that in no way limits us in the future to file a further motion for bond if that's necessary. And I believe that's the court's understanding, Mr. Wood's understanding as well, is it not, Judge?
Let me make that clear for the record. Because of the nature of timing and such, generally speaking, the court sets a bail based upon a probable cause affidavit, and then if a motion needs to be filed after, it can be filed. I did not set a bail because, frankly, it was timing. And so, correct, Mr. Pryor, I'm going to give you complete ability to file a renewed motion or a first motion to deal with bail. I guess de novo is how you could look at that. And so I'm going to set bail today. When you file your motion, the court will definitely give you a hearing for that, and we'll take it and make a decision based upon that.
Thank you, Your Honor. But in regards to argument, Your Honor, I would point out that the charges are, as Ms. Wood pointed out, carry a maximum of 5 years. Mr. Daybell is not charged with anything more serious. And quite honestly, for the prosecuting attorney to assume that in the future he may or may not do that, and that we should increase the bail with the idea that in the future there may be something else coming down the pipe is just clearly contrary to what the purpose of bail is. Bail is to assure that Mr. Daybell shows up to court. Bail is to assure that he's not a flight risk, and there's nothing, as far as I'm concerned, in his history that indicates that he's going to flee the jurisdiction. I would refer the court to the affidavit on number 26, and it talks about the last time that they saw the kids. If Mr. Wood's intention is to pursue further charges, my belief is that he would have pursued those. And quite honestly, at this point, the court needs to take consideration of what the current charges are and whether or not Mr. Daybell will show up to court. Mr. Daybell has taken the initiative to hire private counsel. He has shown up to the proceeding today. Obviously, he's in custody. But Judge, when the police showed up at his house last night, Mr. Daybell didn't flee. Mr. Daybell didn't abscond. Mr. Daybell didn't run. Mr. Daybell's intention was, through his counsel, to turn himself into the court if that was something that was going to happen, and address these issues. He has every intention of addressing these issues. He has significant family in the community. He has kids that live here. He owns property here. And quite honestly, I disagree with Mr. Wood. Mr. Daybell has every intention of staying in the community and every motivation to stay in the community and address these charges. So at this point, Judge, I would ask the court to put the bail at an amount that's appropriate for a 5-year felony sentence. I understand that there's been a significant amount of publicity with this, but publicity is not a reason to raise the bail to an extraordinary amount. And I would suggest that Mr. Wood's suggestion that a $1 million bail...
Okay, guys, so he's saying that he's an upstanding citizen who deserves bail, even though they found 2 children on his property. Now, as you know, they have the same attorney, Lori and Chad, at the moment, so Chad's going to have to get a different attorney. So to me, what it sounds like, and this is an opinion, it sounds like Chad's about to talk, and probably the best thing for him, he might be like the Crystal Lee Kinney in the Kelsey Barrett case. So Chad's defense asked the court, or asked the judge, to set bail at $100,000.
The court has listened carefully to the argument of both parties. The court has reviewed Idaho Criminal Rule 46, specifically the factors contained in Idaho Criminal Rule 46 under subsection C. There are 10 different factors that the court has looked at. The court has also looked carefully at Idaho Code 192904 and the factors that are designed therein. In looking at the factors in 192904, there are four specifically that the legislators have set forth. Number one, ensuring the appearance of the defendant. Number two, ensuring the integrity of the court process, including the right of the defendant to bail as constitutionally provided. Ensuring the protection of victims and witnesses. And number four, ensuring public safety. The court is cognizant that there is an absolute constitutional right to bail provided in both the Idaho Constitution and the U.S. Constitution. The court has taken all of those factors into account, and based upon those factors and the charge, the court is going to set bail in the amount of $1 million. The court notes that the charge is destruction, alteration, and concealment of evidence as pertained in the criminal complaint. I've taken all those factors into account, specifically the factor in Rule 46C, subsection 6, which designates I'm to take into account the nature of the current charge and any mitigating or aggravating factors that may bear on the likelihood of conviction and the possible penalty. The underlying charge here is destruction, alteration, and concealment of evidence, and the allegation is that the evidence was human remains of two different people. That's an aggravating factor, and the court has taken that into account. If bail is posted, Mr. Pryor, I'm also going to make conditions of bail. Those conditions will be as follows. Number one, I'm going to order that a waiver of extradition be provided to the Fremont County Office of the Sheriff. The prosecutor must approve the waiver of extradition by his signature on the waiver of extradition. A copy of that waiver must be filed with the court. Number two, I'm going to order that the defendant shall reside within the boundaries of Bonneville, Jefferson, Madison, and Fremont counties in the state of Idaho. The defendant shall not leave these counties for any reason. Number three, the defendant shall provide the court with his current address and shall not change his address without notifying the court. Number four, the defendant shall keep in regular contact with his attorney. Number five, the defendant shall appear for all court appearances.
Let's hear that again.
The defendant shall appear for all court appearances. Number six, the defendant shall obey all laws of the state of Idaho and the United States of America. Number seven, the defendant will sign up for pretrial services and check in with pretrial services here in Fremont County on a weekly basis, as directed. The defendant shall have absolutely no contact with the victim's families and or any of the state's witnesses in this case. Contact shall include, but be not limited to, verbal contact, written contact, visual contact, text messaging contact, email or internet contact, and or telephonic contact. Such contact shall also include contact through third parties. Number nine, the defendant must wear an ankle monitor 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. He must have the ankle monitor in place before he is released from the Fremont County Jail. Any violations of the geographical limitation imposed herein must be reported immediately to the Fremont County Sheriff's Office and the court. If the defendant is notified that under the order to wear the ankle monitor, intentionally leaving the area of restriction, except for the purpose of obtaining emergency medical care, may be prosecuted as a crime of escape and subject the defendant to penalties under Idaho Code. If the defendant fails to comply with all of these terms, the court may, pursuant to Idaho Criminal Rule 46I and Idaho Code Section 2919, revoke the defendant's release and eligibility for posting of bail. Mr. Daybell, Mr. Pryor, do both of you understand what bail has been set at, as well as any conditions that must be met in order for that bail to be set?
Yes, Your Honor. Yes.
Mr. Wood, any questions?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
All right, we'll be in recess for today, pending that preliminary hearing. There will be a few things that need to be worked out, and we're going to go off the record for now, and I'll see everybody back here at the beginning of July. Council will have to communicate regularly, both with the court.
Okay, so it sounds like to me that Chad is about to start talking. I hope he does do that. That'd probably be the smart thing to do for himself and for the children's justice. So what's left? Well, this case is far from over. You still have Brandon Boudreaux, which this only makes his story more plausible. And so how will this affect Melanie and her chances for her children? It depends on Chad Daybell, Melanie Gibb, and a few other people and investigators. Can't imagine what Kay Woodcock, Larry Woodcock, and especially Colby Ryan is going through right now. I know Brandon's been affected deeply, and this has been a complete major drama. It's been crazy. It's been a lot of ups and a lot of downs. And what we're hearing is, according to East Idaho News, that one of the kids have been identified. We keep hearing there's bones, and then we hear there's bodies, but we're not really certain what they found because they haven't shared it. It's truly a sad ending. But there's one thing, I guess our search is over. From the sounds of what we heard in the courtroom, I was very satisfied by how that judge conducted his court. I liked the fact that he understood exactly what was going on, and I think he was well aware of the part that Chad played. They know a lot more than we do that they haven't shared with us yet. So I'm hearing that a lot of people are reaching out to the families involved with this, and I want to suggest don't do that, because this family needs time to heal. Now, we're hoping for the best for Brandon Boudreaux. He still has a journey in front of him. His is a little bit harder to prove since Alex Cox is no longer here. So people are concerned of whether or not Melanie Boudreaux is next to be arrested. And I can say that probably there's a big chance, especially since she's been lying and supporting the wrong people throughout this whole entire case. And the fact that she lied to each and every one of us on national TV, and she thought she was smart enough to get away with it. That's my opinion, and the opinion of many other people. And what a lot of people are pondering is the fact that Ian is still by her side. So hopefully that is not the case today or tomorrow. He needs to take people's word for this and quit believing a professional manipulator and liar. So how I come to that conclusion was as I started investigating this story, and it was just last week actually, when I heard Melanie talking about how her father just left her mother without any signs that he was going to leave and hid in a hotel. This made me think that he had actually most likely been threatened by the family, because we have seen Alex Cox do it with several of the men that Lori's been married to. So hopefully the police will contact him, because he probably can be a lot of help in this case. So thanks to Melanie Gibb for coming forward. That took a lot of bravery on her part, and especially the interview she did with Nate. But she should be proud of herself right now, because what she had to say had a huge impact on the justice the kids will get. For all the media and all keeping up with the story, I think they did a good job. Melanie tried to play them down and say, well, they were wrong on some things, but you can't be perfect. But they were right on the majority of things. And so, what does she have to say now that Chad is behind bars and they found what they found? I am angry with that woman right now. So guys, I hit my limit. I need to shut out. I'm going to probably take a break before I finish up the second part to that documentary, Connected the Dots. I'm not kidding you. I'm exhausted. So, and then we'll try to start on some new stories. Sorry for the background noise, guys, on this one. So anyways, it's hard for me to find a spot. But let's send our blessings out to the family and just hope the kids are now getting the justice they deserve. And we hear relatively quickly of, what they found in Chad's property. And Chad's kids, they don't have it easy at all either. So guys, love you guys. Thank you for caring and watching. And I'll see you guys soon.